few stories today.
Oh, sorry. We don't have
Surprise. Okay, first of all, did you know that President Obama is demanding the active deployment of the Bundeswehr, which is Germany's armed forces, including their Army, Navy, and Air Force, to NATO's eastern borders at Poland and the Baltic Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that this is an extreme violation of American forces there on and near the borders of Russia. Let's see.
Russians are not happy about that.
No. Apparently, according to the Warsaw Pact, it's culminating a process that began shortly after Russian leader Mikhail Gorbachev agreed to America's terms, which included that NATO not move 1 inch to the east. But this last week, the president held a summit meeting in Germany with the leaders of Germany, Italy, France, and Britain. And then the presumed objective of the meeting was to agree to establish the NATO countries bordering on Russia a military force of the 5 countries, which would threaten a Russian invasion if or when NATO subsequently decides that the threat from Russia be responded to militarily. So they keep building up this threat now. For a while we were at peace with Russia. Now they keep acting like we're not at peace with Russia.
Russia's not going to invade Europe. That's not going to happen.
But it's interesting now that NATO is now encircling Russia with hostile forces, supposedly
and
defensive.
And that's why the Russians are buzzing the aircraft and the ships because, you know, like I said one time ago, what if there was a Russian fleet in the Gulf of Mexico? I think the U.S. would just they would buzz them too.
Yeah, so it doesn't make any sense because first of all we've had peace with Russia. Now they're building up Putin. Now they're kind of setting up this.
Well, quite honestly, the Europeans and the Americans are poking. They're poking.
Well, it's all a show for what? I guess that's my question. And then when Obama visited William and Kate's Kensington Palace, apparently there was quite an uproar because they had a painting was painted in 1660 called the Negro Page. Now supposedly they just noticed this at the last minute,
they just didn't know that,
and they rushed over and they put a potted plant so that the plaque, which called the Negro Page, was covered up. Now,
brilliant.
Again, 1660. What's interesting about that number? It's almost 666, but it is a 13, and also Negro was a term that was used for a period of time.
Yeah, that's the way it was.
It was not at the time. It was not a derogatory term. I don't know if it is now.
No, I'm sure that Barack and Michelle wouldn't mind too much.
Yeah, and it was.
Or should I say Michael? Barack and Michael.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it said that it was the first time that the world has seen into the living quarters of Kate and William since they redecorated using a 4.5 million pounds
Is that all?
of taxpayer money.
You know, and we were going to use 3.5 billion.
Yeah. Plus, then says the couple footed the bill for fixtures and furnishing themselves. Well, then
they are so generous.
No, listen to me. Where did they get their money from? The taxpayers,
hello.
right? Okay. Anyway, I thought that was
That's
kind
hilarious.
of interesting. And then, of course, we still have all the presidential debates going on here. So Ted Cruz continues to be in the news. Now, you might remember
Mr. Plastic Face
that I had reported a few weeks ago that people were saying that he was the Zodiac Killer. But that couldn't...
But for me, it's bizarre.
Well, it is bizarre because he was born in 1970 and the first Zodiac murder was actually in 1968.
He was a negative fetus when he did it. I know it.
So, we know it can't be him. But now they're saying that his father was with Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's true.
And they're showing photos of the father.
Father is a Cuban communist.
Well, he's claiming he wrote a book in 2015.
And Cruz was born in Canada, so officially he's not allowed to run for president.
I know. So anyway, in 1915, Cruz wrote a book called A Time for Truth, and he claims that his Cuban-born father was briefly jailed for urban insurgent activities. Then the father asked if he could join Castro at his mountain camp. But his father couldn't reach Castro, so he fled to Texas. Then he renounced Castro after Castro took power in 1959.
Sounds a little bipolar, okay?
Now, the father wrote a book in January called A Time for Action. And in this book, the father says the U.S. government was duped. The American people were duped.
Well, that's true.
When people ask me why I supported Castro in overthrowing the Cuban government, I readily admit that I didn't realize he was a communist. Do you believe that?
What? Oh, I didn't know Hitler was a Nazi.
Yeah, and then, speaking of plastic surgery and Ted Cruz, There is now going around the internet a female Ted Cruz doppelganger.
I saw
Did you
that.
see that?
She looks better than him.
Okay, she's only 21 years old.
Really? Because she looked like 50.
Cersei Hayes was on Maury Povich
Yeah.
to prove that her
He's still
boyfriend,
alive?
Freddie Green, and Green means go, remember Green is a programming term, that the
Also
baby was
satanic.
his. So,
What? Who? Wait. Baby was who?
was Freddie Green's. That's why she was on this Maury Povich show.
Uh-huh.
But because when she was on the show, people weren't so much interested in the issue, but the fact that they claimed
She
that
looks
she
like-
resembled Ted
Well,
Cruz.
she really does.
So then she...
Or is she Ted Cruz?
well,
He's a transgender.
The Huffington Post claimed that she was his daughter, so she had to say that no, she wasn't his daughter, and she'd never even heard of him before.
Ah, this is hilarious.
But it gets better. So now that popular porn site, which I never heard of, called
Oh, I hope you never heard of
called
it.
X Hamster. Have you heard of that one?
But it sounds horrible.
X Hamster. Here's another furry creature,
Is that
right?
what you put in your...
It's a furry creature. No, stop. Contacted her and the
Oh,
boyfriend.
wait, a furry creature?
The popular porn site called X Hamster contacted her and Green, and they want to see them have sex together.
Who, the hamster and the woman? Or the... I'm so confused.
Green and the woman, the Ted Cruz doppelganger.
Hey, you watch your
doppelganger.
language, miss.
So for $10,000, they claim of 6 minutes of action. Now $10,000 isn't that much in the overall scheme of things. When
What, they want for 6 minutes
for
of
sex on tape. So she said she's made sex before, made sex tapes before, but never for money.
This woman who looks like...
Ted Cruz.
She sounds like a winner.
Then he's so excited because he said that his girlfriend now is going to be more famous than Madonna. So we have a lot of programming triggers out there. We have Madonna, we have Green, we have whatever this
Oh
Ted
my
Cruz
God,
is
it gets
representing.
better and better.
We have the pornography in it, we have the word doppelganger.
Isn't America a great country?
So then it gets better.
Not possible.
It is better.
Not possible.
There is, let's see, the former Speaker of the House, John, now this was interesting,
Boner.
John Boner, because
Boner.
B-O-H-N was the last name of the woman on our block, the radio and
She reported,
media
she reported.
personality
That was murdered.
that was murdered on our block. So now we have a B-O-E-H-N-E-R, so it's very close. Okay, this former Speaker of the House, John Boner, claims that the presidential candidate, Ted Cruz, is Lucifer in the flesh. Now, I thought that was pretty telling.
I knew he
that's,
looked like demonic entity.
again, an imprinting for people. So we have Madonna, we have Green, we have Lucifer in the flesh. And he says, I get along with almost everyone, but I never worked with a more miserable son of a bee in my life.
Woo!
Now,
You go, Mr. Boner.
Cruz claimed he didn't know this guy. However,
Did he know his transgender?
early
Daughter.
on, Cruz was actually Boner's attorney.
And claims he didn't know him.
And he claims he didn't
Brilliant.
know him. And there was not a ruling in whatever case they were in until 2004, when a federal judge sided with the congressman, and Boner ended up being awarded more than $1 million in legal fees. And then Boner was asked about this whole thing on the Jay Leno show.
Oh, that's official.
And when he called his old legal pal, Cruz, a good guy. I don't always agree with him, but he's a good guy. Now he's calling him Lucifer in the flesh. This is what I'm telling you. This stuff is all made up and put out there for people. So, what do you think about that?
I think
That's
somebody
Ted
paid
Cruz.
Mr. Boner to say that about. Trump must have paid
Maybe.
Boner $2 million to say
Well,
that about.
Lucifer in the
Cruz.
flesh is definitely, because there's a, I don't know if it's on or not, but there is a, not a movie, but a television show of some kind about Lucifer that comes down into the flesh. So, they may be tying this together. I don't know if it ever came
Oh
on that.
my! We all know that Hillary's Lucifer.
Well, then Bernie Sanders. This also I thought was
Bernie.
very
I don't
odd.
like him anymore.
I never liked any of them. They're all the same. He doesn't understand why cigarettes are still
I don't
illegal.
understand why he's still living.
He says cigarettes cause cancer.
He's like 110.
Obviously, and a dozen other diseases. Now, this is, again, while there are wars going on in the world with Syrian refugees, and we're debating cigarette taxes and soda taxes, believe it or not. They're calling this a polarizing issue for Sanders and his opponent,
Colonel Sanders.
Hillary Clinton.
He should just keep making fried chicken.
Sanders says there's a big difference between the heavy taxing of sugary drinks like soda and upping taxes for cigarettes. He says the soda tax penalizes poor people because they drink more soda.
Oh, poor people don't smoke.
But anyway, I just thought that was so crazy.
He should go back to Vermont
a polarizing
and put some
issue
maple syrup on something.
of soda tax. I mean, really. I think we have a lot more things to think about.
I mean, Bernie.
However,
Bernie, go back to the Vatican.
Listen to this. Clinton thinks that we should have a soda tax to get universal preschool for kids.
Oh, maybe she should have like a military raid on the soda companies.
Yeah, we can put more of them into under mind control situations, what's called the educational system.
Because
but
we don't have free will. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion.
That's what you said. And then get this one. Now we have influential Twitter investor Chris Sacca, who explains why Mark Cuban, we keep getting this Cuba connection, why Mark is a programming term. Are you marked? Mark Cuban will be elected president of the U.S.
But who's that?
Mark Cuban. He says, can I make a prediction for your audience when he was a guest on the Bill Simmons podcast? He says, I think Cuban is going to be president of the United States. Mark Cuban will be the president of the United States.
What does this mean?
He says that Cuban will be elected in 2024 as a very moderate Republican after Hillary Clinton serves 2 terms.
Oh my God.
He says Mark Cuban is Donald Trump without all the stuff that people hate. Cuban is a successful businessman who cares, he's open-minded, he's not an idiot, he reads.
Except nobody knows who the hell he is.
He is inconvincible, he's got crossover appeal, he's the American dream. I'm putting it out there right now, Mark Cuban will be president of the United States.
Did you look him up?
No. He's a billionaire investor and Shark Tank guest.
Yeah, because we need another billionaire for president. That we haven't had one of those in a while.
So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm sure people will go back and refer to this, so we'll see what happens. Then, of course, Prince. Now, we really didn't report on the death of Prince because there were so many other people reporting on the death of Prince.
We all know it was a global ritual.
That's right. And I will also refer people to Sandra Barr's post on Facebook.
Excellent work.
Yeah, she did a really great post analyzing everything.
Yes.
So I'm just going to add to that, which you may have already seen that by now, that Prince's band, and guess what it's called? The Revolution. And what have we been talking about is going to happen? The Revolution.
Civil War.
Okay, they disbanded in 1986. Now this is 30 years
Really? Was
later.
that long ago?
Yeah, according to the article.
Wow.
30 years later, they have decided, let me translate, their handlers have decided that after spending 3 or 4 days together and grieving, now they're going to come back together and do more shows, and probably with some of his stuff that was locked in that secret vault, right?
Well, it's like 2,000 tracks of music.
That's what they claim, but they're also saying they have to drill it open because nobody has the combination.
Well, they did drill it open.
Did
apparently. They? Yes, what I heard.
Okay, well anyway, so 30 years later. So again, this is Purple Rain. They talked a lot about the Queen of England. This is her 90th year being the Purple Rain, R-E-I-G-N. Niagara Falls was bathed in purple because of the purple rain of the Queen.
But you know, I feel bad for Prince Charles because like he's getting old and his mother's not giving up.
Well, but they're they made a lot of claims. Read Sandra Barr's article on Facebook because
I think he's going to do something to his mother.
She does address a lot of those kind of issues, and it's very well written, in my
Or
opinion.
he'll have Camilla do it, because no one will ever
But anyway, the prince died on the Queen's birthday. That's kind of the main thing, and it's all about Purple Rain. So we want to. Oh, and you know, I read something else today. I didn't put this in my links, but apparently he rejected pink at some point.
Who did?
Purple Prince rejected pink.
Because it's a girl color?
I don't know. No, Pink is the name of a recording artist.
Oh, Pink,
Yeah. So he rejected her, and so I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Purple, pink, you know.
Well, why would he reject her?
I don't know. I didn't read
does
it.
Pink clash with purple?
I don't know. I didn't read it, but I thought, isn't that odd? Because Sandra Barr also goes into the royal colors of red and blue and mixed together are purple. So, as I said, read her article. It's very good.
Well, I heard. Are you done with the Prince story?
With the Prince story.
Yeah, because I heard that he was diagnosed with AIDS 6 months ago.
I heard that too. Yeah.
And that he was only 80 pounds when they found him.
Yeah, so who knows what they did.
Because he thought God was going to save him.
Yeah, so who knows what really happened. We actually will never hear the correct story.
No.
Then, this article is very odd to me. It started out, remember when the vampire cat took the internet by storm? I never heard of the vampire cat, right? Well, now they're claiming the newest Instagram obsession is Huff the Hedgehog.
I hadn't heard of that either.
They said he's an adorable little critter that lives in Utah, and he has
Utah. He's Mormon.
heart-melting little fangs. So they're coming up with
Just
the
like the
fangs.
Mormons.
And this vampire cat. Now, Huff the Hedgehog was reported on by Huffington Post.
Of course it was.
And there's apparently somebody was gonna get rid of him or whatever. He was rescued. So this woman named
So it was
Carolyn.
actually a real...
It's a real hedgehog.
Uh-huh.
This woman named Carolyn Parker says she stepped in, she took over, she put him on Instagram, and even though he only has 89 posts, he has 24,000 followers. So again, all this sounds really weird. And this is one of those stories I was just going to discard. But then in where was this? In Baltimore. A man, a 25-year-old man named Alex Brizzi, wore a onesie hedgehog suit. Now, where does one get a onesie hedgehog suit?
I've been looking
right?
for one. I cannot find it.
Well, apparently he bought the only one in stock from wherever.
Apparently.
Because first of all, we talk about this thing in Huffington Post, 24,000 followers. I don't know. Then this guy shows up wearing a onesie suit. Claims he's got a bomb strapped to his chest. So the police shot him several times. They didn't kill him, but he claimed that he had a flash drive that he wanted the police to play. So they used a drone, I guess, to hover over him, and they determined the bomb was chocolate bars. Wasn't a bomb.
Right, so we should eat him instead.
I guess. And then he's a hedgehog. And then apparently his father claims that he's had the son has had suicidal tendencies, and that when they played the flash drive, it was about the government covering up the truth about black holes in the sun. And his father claims that it was linked to a vision the son had, and the son claims he had a vision from God that made him believe the world would end on July 3rd.
No, June 3rd.
Oh, I'm sorry, June 3rd, yes.
Oh gosh, I'll just be in Berlin then.
But anyway, isn't that odd? We have a hedgehog, now we have a guy dressed like a hedgehog.
My life will end in Berlin on June 3rd? That's terrible.
She talks, this owner of the hedgehog says that the people love hedgehogs because they're all prickly and tough, but he's sweet and lovable on the inside like a lot of people. And that people can relate to hedgehogs. I don't think so. Except this guy.
I don't really think about hedgehogs.
No, and this guy must, because he was dressed up like one. So he's obviously something going on here.
But you know what I was thinking? Baltimore?
What?
Baal. Remember those the statues of Baal?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
That might be something.
Absolutely could be. And so, and the other thing is Baltimore. I mean, that's right outside of, the...
Washington.
Yep. Now, that, to me, obviously programming. So, the next story is also a programming story, because I don't know if you remember, but I remembered this guy, a JetBlue pilot who was charged with drunk driving flying from Orlando to New York last year.
I thought that was just last week.
It was last year. He flew with 151 passengers on board, they claim, and then he was given
higher than the plane.
He was given a random alcohol testing upon landing. Now, in my opinion, if you walk on and you're drunk and you have stewards and stewardesses or hosts, whatever they call them, flight attendants, and you have your co-pilot and you have your passengers and you have everybody else that you see, you have the check-in people, they're going to notice if you're drunk. They're not going to
unless they're drunk.
They're not going to let you fly the plane drunk. So, again, weird.
But he did it.
Well, I don't believe that he was drunk.
You don't believe it?
I don't believe it.
So why would they do that to him?
Well, I don't know that, but that's why I'm bringing this up. That was a random test after he flew the plane, not before. So if they did it before, I'd say, okay, but this was after. They claim he had a blood alcohol level of 0.111 programming numbers, and then they did a second test of 0.091, that's still a 1. If you add 9 and 1 together, you have a 10.
So what's legal?
I don't know what legal is. He should have... For a pilot, he should have nothing. Doesn't matter. So then it says, during the walk to the on-site testing office, his face was red and he was chewing gum rapidly and saying he attributed the high ratings to the gum he was chewing.
Was it cocaine gum?
Well, who knows what they put in his gum. I think he was set up. So, anyway, it says early in the day, he flew from New York with 119 passengers. So he was drunk both ways? So we have 11-9 or 9-11, right? Mm-hmm. So we have stuff going on. And so then they removed him and they, of course, got rid of him. But he also said that on that first flight that his co-pilot said Murphy was drinking an unknown beverage from a cup. So anyway. You could smell if it was alcohol. And then it says last month, an American Airlines co-pilot was
Yes.
charged for drinking alcohol. But for this one,
Right.
it was before the flight.
Right.
That
I
makes
remember.
sense, not after the
Right.
flight.
Uh-huh.
So something was wrong with that guy. They're getting rid of him for whatever reason. Maybe he reported UFOs or whatever. They're getting rid of him, and I thought that was interesting. Now the Z.